morning. Welcome to today's webinar of AG5's Basics Training. I see we already have plenty of participants actually that joined. That's really, really nice. I know we said we're going to start at 11 a.m., but maybe giving them a few more seconds to join. I think the chat is also open. So if you want to say something in the chat, feel free to post it. We're really happy that you can join today. Good morning. Yes. Maybe you can also put in the chat already where you're from, because that's always really nice to see and to hear where everybody's joining from. Might be a good morning for us, might be a good afternoon for somebody else, right? Okay, you see somebody from Hungary. I see two people from Germany, Hannover and Lübeck. Hello, good morning for you. I'm sorry, my Hungarian is not good, so I'm not able to say good morning in Hungarian. But I think we can stick to English. Everybody should be able to understand English. Jó reggelt, I guess it is in Hungarian. Ah, nice, perfect. Goedemorgen to the participant from the Netherlands. Nice. Okay, so people can of course still joining while we're already starting with our webinar. But I would say let's jump in so we can get the most of the time. Let me share my screen. I hope you can all see my screen. Let's open the chat here on the side so I don't miss it if somebody posts something. And yes, so let's start with our webinar, the basic training for AG5. So some people of you might join as totally new people that are interested in AG5 work. Some of you maybe already are working with AG5 and just want to refresh a webinar. That's also fine, of course. But I want to point out this is the basic training. We do have also an advanced training. So of course, we cannot cover everything during the webinar now. But if you have interest in more of the advanced features of AG5, then feel free to reach out to schedule a personalized demo session for you to get to know more about it. But for today, we're going to focus on the basics just to make sure that we have enough time to cover it. A few words to myself before we start. My name is Stefan Schneider. You might see it from my name, but you can also probably hear it from my accent. I'm from Germany originally. I do live in the Netherlands, close to Amsterdam, and I work here at AG5 as an onboarding specialist. That means I will be helping new customers to set up their system in AG5 and put them on their path to success in their AG5 journey. And yes. So, but what will this session entail? A few information about this in advance. The webinar itself will be roughly 40 minutes, give or take a little bit, of course, depending on how many questions are coming in throughout the webinar. I do have a colleague here in the chat that also has a look on it with me, but we do have a designated time for a Q&A session afterwards of 15 minutes. But if time allows and it just the opportunity comes up, then of course I can show also something while we're in the system itself. You will get the recording afterwards, and you will also get the slides. So no need for you to make any notes or something. You will get everything via email. Same goes for questions that we are not able to answer, either because of time or maybe because it's a little bit out of the scope for the basic features. You will get an answer afterwards via email from us. So, but in the beginning now, it would be nice to see how are you currently managing your skills already? Are you using spreadsheets, an Excel system, or do you maybe have an HRM or an LMS that you're currently using? Let me know what you do, just so I get an idea what is most relevant. Of course, could be also happening that you have no system at all just yet. Oh yeah, okay, I see somebody has no structured system yet. So for you, it's interesting, of course. But I see plenty of people using Excel. Yes, And so this is actually one of our goals that we want to create today. We want to create a matrix that you're used to in Excel a little bit, and how that would look in AG5. So what will you learn during this webinar? First of all, of course, I want you to understand the key concept and the basic components of the AG5 system. I want to show you how you can add add employees, add skills to the system, how you can create a matrix from scratch, how can we create job requirements, or a little bit more generally speaking, how can you create requirements for anything? Doesn't necessarily have to be based on a job role, but maybe also on maybe a machine or product line. Depending, of course, how you're working. We want to make sure that you understand how we can set up those mandatory skills, assign the trainings, and how can we automate the tracking of certification. Because I saw that some people already sent some questions in the beginning. For example, how we can automate this, how can we have reminders set up into place if certification runs out, right? So this is something we're going to have a look together. And of course, we want to create the matrix so you have a real life insight on the current workforce and how everybody is trained and where we need to facilitate a new training. If you are not familiar with AG5 yet, here's a slide that explains a little bit what we are and what we are doing. Our main mission, of course, is to help you visualize and close your skill gaps, mostly for regulated businesses. So we're going to help you to make it easy to see who needs to be trained in what and why do they need to be trained. And this is then a system that everybody can use. You can determine who has access to that specific matrix, so you don't run into the issue that you have 5 or 6 different versions of matrices floating around and nobody knows what is the most current one. And that, of course, makes your life as the skills management professionals so much easier. Yes, so at AG5, we're using the train the trainer concept for our onboarding. Actually, that's the basic training is also part of onboarding. The train the trainer means that during the onboarding, we will train the project team for the onboarding. We will make sure that the key users are trained, and then you will be more or less your AG5 ambassador or the AG5 hero internally, and then you can facilitate your knowledge internally to managers, to team leads, maybe to employees, everybody who needs to have access to the system. But yeah, you can see here then on the right side, in this case, Sally would be then the admin user for AG5. She can facilitate the knowledge. The key concepts of AG5 are shown here on the left side, and this translates beautifully to the matrix that you can see on the right side. So if you have a look at the first one, that's the employees. You can see here in our matrix on the right side, Team A are our employees, Noah and Sally, for example. And Sally, by the way, is a good employee. She's completely trained in everything. That's, of course, fine. But if you look now at Noah, for example, we can see here on the left that the skills where he needs to be trained. And that is the second key concept that we are using, right? So the skills, I can see Noah is trained in operate machine A. There's a green check mark, that's fine. But then the next one is already a little bit different. So what does this mean? We have a red exclamation mark that tells us, hey, Noah needs to be trained in that specific skill, production line setup, but he's currently not. So this is our first indicator and our first help in our metric that tells us, hey, there's something that needs to be looked at. And then the next one down underneath is machine learns know-how. And here's the yellow bell icon. This is training that Noah had in the past, and this is about to run out. So this is a warning for us. The bell is ringing. Hey, warning, be aware there's something about to change. That means that his certification is about to run out, and we need to make sure that there's a new training for him. And by the way, you not only see those warnings or those notifications in the matrix, but we can also set up an automated process that would send out an email, for example, to Noah or to the manager or to someone external, depending what you would want to do, to say, hey, be aware, your certificate is about to run out, or hey, you need to be trained in a specific skill, please take action. So those are also automation that AG5 can take away for you or take over for you to make your life a little bit easier. Here we can see the actual agenda of the training. So I mentioned a little bit earlier already, we want to go through the key concepts in AG5. So that's the first part here. We want to manage the employees and the skills. In AG5, we want to create a skill from scratch and also an employee. Afterwards, we're going to have a look at skill libraries. What even is a skill library and why is it important for us? The next part would be organizational structure. And the org structure is not only the structure of your organization, as the name suggests already, but also everything that you would want to use to create a requirement for. For example, this can be typically the departments, could be the job roles, could maybe the product line, right? So this is something AG5 can cover and can show in the system. After this is all done, we want to start and create a requirement for something. Why does somebody need to be trained? Is it because he's an operator? Maybe he's assigned to a specific production line. So we want to have the system telling me then, hey, Stefan needs to be trained in specific skills. And then we want to have a matrix. We already have some matrices in the system that we can have a look at. But most importantly, of course, we want to create a matrix from scratch to make sure that you understand how this works and how this is set up. And then afterwards, we want to manage the skill compliance, which is fancy for we want to make sure that we understand how we can add a result in the matrix and where can I check the compliance for my team, for example. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to put it into the chat. My colleague Larissa and I, we both have an eye on it and can answer. So with this being said, let's jump into AG5. And for everybody who has not seen the system itself, so if you look at it, this is the first view that you can see. This is your AG5 dashboard where you can see all the different existing matrices already. And here on the top row, you can see already a little bit the key concept that we are talking about. You can see the employees, you can see the skills, and then we have the organizational tab, which includes all kinds of admin and organizational information, but also your skill libraries and your org structure. And we will have a closer look at this one in a bit. And then we have an Insights tab. That's a feature that shows you the content of a matrix or of your workforce, not only in a matrix, but also in a nice graph to make it a little bit easier for the reporting. But before we start with the first key concept of the employees, I want to redirect your attention here to the right side where you can see my initials. If I open this one up, you always have the possibility to open the AG5 Help Center, which is a really, really nice overview of all the information you would need to set up your system. You can also request a demo from here. You can contact the support. You can have a sneak peek of the current release notes, but also the roadmap, what is ahead of us in the future. But yeah, most important, of course, here is the Help Center. Getting started, what are the first steps you can do? How can I set up a skill matrix? And pretty much anything you can ask yourself. Otherwise, if there's anything in here you do not find an answer, then of course you can always reach out to us. So let's go into AG5. The first one, the first key concept is the employees, of course, right? So the employees is an integral part of the system. If there's no employees, then what are we even keeping track of? Let's have a look at the employee tab. And here it's just a simple flat list of all the existing employees that you can see. The next one here would be contract status, active or ended. This is important because if a contract for an employee ends and they are not part of the active workforce anymore, that doesn't mean that you might not be needing their certificates at some point. Maybe you have an audit that and you need to prove why a specific employee from last year operated a specific machine. And this is why we have the option to look at the ended employees that only shows the employees that are not part of the active workforce. The next one here is a filter option. You can filter all kinds of information you can see here. Of course, this depends a little bit how much detail you add when you create an employee, right? So you might not have a specific contract start to end date because maybe you don't keep track of this or contract type, right? So this is something you need to keep in mind. And I have a question already here in chat from Dimitri. He's asking if we can reactivate an employee again. Yes, we can reactivate an employee. And I think I already know why you're asking, because you sent in a question in advance if somebody goes on extended leave, if he can deactivate and reactivate the employee. And yes, so those are two different things. If I deactivate an employee, that means they're not part of the workforce anymore, the contract has ended. But I will show you in a moment also the possibility to put someone on a sabbatical, parental leave, something that is a longer absence. There's another question if the dashboard and matrices are shared with everybody. Yeah, this is also something that's get talked about a little bit more in detail in the advanced training. So Dimitri is wondering if everybody who logs in has access to everything in here. No, we can limit access rights to specific parts of the system, so not everybody automatically sees everything. Yeah, so let's have just a look at the first employee here, Ryan Anderson. If I open this one up, I can see already all kinds of information. We're going to start at the top to go through it step by step to understand what we can see here. First, of course, we have the basic HR data. And this can be put in manually, but we also have the possibility, of course, to work with different integrations that the data would come in automatically. I can see here, here's an employee number, there's an email address, contract type, there's nothing in yet. However, of course, you can create contract types, for example, full-time, permanent, contractor, no, whatever would help you to sort it and what you want to see in the system. I can see that he also started on the 1st of February. There's no contract end date in here, so I assume he's a permanent contract. He's also currently available, so he's not on parental leave or on a sabbatical or something. I can see the person, I can see the manager. The manager here is actually a really nice and helpful tool because we can turn on a feature in the system that automatically creates a matrix based on the manager in here. So the system can down the line say, hey, Joost, I create a matrix only for you with all the employees that we're reporting to you in one matrix. And then this would be also already creating a bubble. Now coming back to you, Dimitri, this could also be used as a bubble for Joost to limit his access. To say Joost can only see the people that are reporting to him. No? But this is an advanced feature that can be talked about at a later stage. Yeah, so this is the basic HR data. If I go a little more down, I can see the position field. And the position in this case is a little bit an umbrella term for AG5 because a position can be anything that you want to attach requirements to, for example. So this leads us here to the right side. We can see here a green 5 and we can see a red 5. What does this mean? So this means that we overall have 10 requirements for Ryan based on these positions. And 5 are green, which means 5 he is already trained enough in, and 5 are still red, which means this training is still open and needs to be done. If I click on that little arrow here, I can also see where those different requirements are coming from. I can see he's part of the logistics teams 1. There are 2 requirements coming from. I can see he's an assembly operator, so there are 7 requirements coming from. And I can see he's also a junior developer, so there's 1 requirement coming from. And this altogether gives us 7 requirements for his current job profile. If we scroll a little bit more down to this, I come in a second, but if we scroll a little bit more down, we can see here all those different skills that I mentioned here in the position field. But now you're going to ask probably, hey, this is 10 skills. Why do I see 26 down here at the bottom? And this is a good and valid question. But if you scroll down a little bit, you can see here the status of different skills. You can see this one, for example, certified safety and health official. The skill is still valid, but it's not required anymore. So that means if an employee at some point changes the position within the company, they might have a new set of requirements, but that does not invalidate the previous training that they had. So the system keeps track of all the trainings you had in the past in the system, and we'll show you this here in an overview with that little mark here. It's valid, not required. You can also see here in those 2 different columns that what is required, what is not required. I can see, for example, communication that is still that's actually expired here. So he got the training in the past and expired actually already 5 years ago. So he really needs to be retrained in this one. But if I go a little bit more down, I can see here he tried this one, but it failed, the training, right? And so I can go down the list and have a nice overview of all the different trainings that they had. I can also see if a level is too low, for example. Maybe he participated in a training for a different job role and only needed a level 2, but for his new job, he needs now a level 4. And that's what you can actually see here on that little pie chart. You can see how many pieces of the pie are gray and have this blue frame around it. That means it's actually a requirement for them. They need to be trained up to this. And yes, before the question is coming, you can of course determine how many slices the pie chart should have, which means how many levels a skill should have. In this case, of course, it's a 4-level skill. This one is a simple achieved or failed skill, but we can also be more custom and say, hey, we can create one with 3, with 10, whatever would work for you. Of course, the more pie slices you see, the less or the more difficult it might be to understand how many levels actually are here. I can see here also the attachments part. If I open this one up, I can see there's an attachment directly for the employee. So this means that the employee maybe got a driver's license before they joined the workforce here at this company, but this is still something you want to keep track in AG5, because it makes also your life easier if it's relevant for the job that he's actually doing. Let's say the auditor says, hey, I want to see if Ryan can use the forklift driver. Then you can just go to Ryan's page. You can say, hey, there's the certificate, or here's this driver's license, and bam, it's there. So you don't have to go to HR or through its files. No, it's all in one place. And here at the bottom, we can see attachments links to a specific skill. Currently, there's nothing in here. However, we're going to upload something in a bit. But this means if I achieve a specific skill in AG5, then I can also upload a certificate for that result. Or if you're going to use the mobile app from AG5, you can also automatically upload the e-signature that somebody was trained. And then this would show up here at the bottom with the skill that it belongs to. Yes, so let's go back to the overview here, because we want to also talk about the potential position. So that's a really, really nice tool if you want to give your employees a little bit of agency about their own growth and career choices in the company. Because what the employee can do here, they can say, hey, I actually maybe don't want to be an assembly operator. I want to grow into something else. And in this case, Ryan said, hey, I want to develop myself into a welding operator. And he pinned now this potential position to his profile to have an overview. Hey, how many of the skills that I need to fulfill this job role, how many skills do I already have? And here I can see I have 43%, or he has 43% of the needed skills. I can see some of them are already trained, but the level is simply too low. So then maybe they can take a course and get trained in this one to grow into another position. If he says, no, I don't want to be a welding operator, I want to do something completely different, then he can click on browse. And then here we can see all the positions in AG5 that has requirements attached to it to see, okay, what do I need to do to grow? Let's say he maybe wants to become a team manager, and then I can pin it. And then I can see here at the bottom now my team manager role. If I do not want to pin anything anymore, I can simply click on that little pin icon and unpin it to remove it. And this potential position is really, really nice for the employee themselves, but it's also very helpful for the manager, of course, or the team lead of Ryan to say, hey, let's discuss where can you grow to, what is needed of you to get that promotion. I see a question from a participant. Hi, Lisa. You're asking, can we extract the kind of organigram from this? So what you can do, you can export the employee list. You have here an export button, right? You can also create a custom export where you can determine what kind of information you want. But like a real graphical organigram, you would not be able to simply create out of this one. But yes, so let's create an employee from scratch. To do this, we go here on create employee, and then we can see really needed is actually only the first name and the last name, right? So if I'm going to put myself in here real quick, so this is all I need to create an employee. However, of course, as I mentioned previously, with the filter function you have, the more data you can put in here or you want to put in here, the more options you have afterwards to filter. Contract type, there's nothing in here, nothing defined yet. I can say contract period starts or started on the 1st of March. However, this is a Sunday, right? No, I do not want to start on a Sunday. I want to start on a Monday. As a manager, let's say Ryan is my manager, for example, I can add a remark if I want to. Maybe I'm coming in from an external company, or maybe I'm coming in from a referral from somebody. Right, so this is something we can put in here. I can click on save, and then you can see this already looks close to what we saw with Ryan, but it's just very, very empty. So now we're going to start to fill it up. First, of course, we want to have a position. So as what am I even joining the company? And now I have the option between a flat list and a tree list. The flat list is just everything flat in a long list. The tree list makes it a little bit, at least in my opinion, a little bit nicer to go through to see, okay, where am I actually, or what I'm looking for. In this case, first, I want to say a specific organization. Let's put myself into the logistics teams 1, because I think Ryan is in it too, and he's my manager after all. And but I'm not only in the team and not doing anything. I'm also working as, let's see, logistic expert level 1 in the logistics team 1. I guess that fits, right? So I can click on save. And then the system already starts to calculate in the back and say, hey, okay, so what does Stefan need to be trained in? And why does he need to be trained in something? And you can see here, all of a sudden, I have 25 requirements for me. And if I open this one up, I can see 2 requirements are coming from my logistics team itself, and then 23 are coming from my job role as a logistic expert level 1. If I scroll a little bit more down, I can see the flat list of all the different skills that are required of me. I can also see here at the bottom in a little bit of a lighter gray to see where that skill requirement is coming from. And yeah, so if you're, let's say I would go, I started 3 days ago, but I'm already sick, so I want to have a little longer leave, maybe I broke my leg or something, then I could now click here on the edit button and add an unavailability. And let's say, okay, I started now on the 2nd, but yesterday I broke my leg. I'm probably going to be out of commission until the end of April, injury. And then you can already see that now here on my profile picture, where theoretically a picture could be, you can see this little moon icon, which means that I'm not part of the current workforce right now. I'm unavailable for the system. But once my unavailability runs out, I simply jump back to being available again. This, of course, is really nice if you have people who are gone for a longer period of time, as I mentioned earlier, parental leave, maternity or paternity leave, maybe a sabbatical, or somebody is just sick for a longer time. So I can, I don't want to say put them to sleep, but I can temporarily deactivate the account, but then, of course, they can come back. If an employee has access to the system itself and they have their own access rights, putting them on an unavailability does not delete their access to the system itself, right? So look at if they have a user account to log in AG5, they could still do this even when they're unavailable up here. Are there any questions about how to create an employee and how to change or add a position? If you want to change the position of the current one, you can click on the edit button and then you can remove things and just add them. Good, I don't see any questions regarding the employee part. Then let's jump to the skills section. The first view is similar to what you can see in the employee list already. It's a flat list of all the different skills. I can see the skill code, I can see the name, and here you can already see a little bit more information about the category they're assigned to. I have the same active or inactive skills. Inactive skills might be interesting for seasonal skills, or maybe if you have a new iteration of a new skill and you want to deactivate the old one, but you want to keep track, of course, of who was trained last year for the old skill. Then you can deactivate one and then create the new skill. But being inactive means that all the achievements for the employees are still saved. Filter, I can filter on skill type, on the category. Skill type is something you can also determine by yourself what you would put in there. Commonly used is, for example, if it's a certificate, if it's a workshop, maybe on the floor training, external training, right? So those are things you can put in here, whatever would make your life easier. We can also see here the validity period, which tells us already on first glance for how long is this specific certificate valid until somebody needs to be retrained in it. And in this case, it would be 1 year. I can export the list the same as I could export the employee list. I can also create a custom export with different information in here. But let's have a look at the first skill. So this is our certified safety and health official training. I can see here on the top part is the general skill data that you can put in the system. It's the name and the code. We have the rating scale. This is a 4-level skill in this case. Of course, you can create multiple level skills. You can achieve, failed. You can only have a 4-level skill, and you can be creative here. Skill type in this, it's a certificate. We have a description for the skill, a warning period of 6 months, and this goes hand in hand with the validity period, because this tells us now that if I would be trained today, my training is valid for 1 year, and 6 months before my training is running out, the system can start to warn me, either with that bell icon in my matrix, or if I want to send out an email that says, hey, be aware, your certification is running out in 6 months. Of course, this is custom. You can also change it to a different set. If we scroll a little bit more down, I can see the 4 levels that we can see here. If I open this one up, we have a general level description, but we can also go and add a custom skill description, a level description for specific skills. So I could, for example, say level 1 means employee needs to be able to perform X, Y, Z, right? And then I can add a description specifically only, specifically only for that specific level. Let's put here in the front. So now if I open the first level up, that means employee needs to be able to perform X, Y, Z. So this is really specific for that one skill. If you want to have a more detailed description, what needs to be achieved, or what milestone in my training needs to be achieved for me to be able to pass to the next level. If I scroll down a little bit more, I can also see a similar view as the employee one. We can see in the first one is the employee status. So this tells me which employee has anything to do with this skill here. And you can see here on the right side already all kind of information. You can see, for example, Ryan, he is still currently still trained in it, but it's not required of them. John Cho, I can see his one is about to expire soon, his training. He achieved it on 2023, yes. So now I can go down the list and I can see, hey, who needs to be trained in what, and why is something missing. And I can also see in the next tab here, why somebody needs to be trained in. If I click on, I can see now that this specific skill is actually part for the welding operator as a job role, and it's a requirement for this specific machine, down body machine XP. So people who want to work on that machine or who want to do this job need to be trained in that specific, or need to have that specific certificate. Attachments is a direct skill attachment to that skill. So it's not in relation to an employee or employee achievement. So the attachment here would be more training material, or maybe a blanco, like an empty attendance sheet that would be relevant for the trainer to have there. Any information you want to attach to that specific skill. If I want to edit that skill, I can click here on the edit button, and then you can already see the changes that I can do. And you can also see, and this is really, really important to understand, you cannot change the rating scale afterwards. And why is this the case? I'm going to explain to you, and this is a great example. This is a 4-level skill, but we also have skills, for example, that have achieved, failed. So if you would want to say, hey, I want to edit this now from a 4-level to achieved and failed, the system would simply not understand what is the level 2, what is the level 3. Is this achieved? Is this failed? What's going on here? The same, of course, other way around. If I have an achieved, failed skill, I want to change it to a multi-level skill, then the system would not be able to say, hey, this is going to be level 3 or level 2. What's happening here? And that's the reason why you cannot change the rating scale after the skill is created. If you say, hey, we want to change this one to a multi-level one or to achieve failed one, then I would recommend to go and add an active period. So you would go and archive that specific skill. Let's say the skill would be only valid till yesterday, and then I could create a new skill from scratch that is called maybe the same one with maybe 2025 behind it that is valid for today. This would be like a workaround, and this would also ensure that nobody can be trained anymore in the old skill and they need to be trained in the new one. So let's create a skill from scratch. How can we do this? We click here on create skill, and then we can see, as I mentioned, the most important part, or the part that you need to create a skill is the rating scale, and of course the name. Let's maybe call it AG5 expert, because that's why we're all here today, become AG5 experts, right? So we call it the skill code AG1. And if you do not work with skill code, that's also fine. You could, for example, then simply use your skill name as a skill code. That's legit, that there's no harm in doing though. Just keep in mind the system is currently sorting by your skill code. So if, for example, have now the name AG5 expert that starts with an A, but my code starts with a Z, it would show up at the bottom of the list because the code starts with a Z. Which of course gives you also the opportunity to cheat a little bit if you want to rearrange your skills, because then you can have your skill name, and then you can say, yeah, okay, actually want to use this more, a little bit more in the back, and then you can use a different skill code. But yeah, so we have the AG5 expert as the skill code, becoming proficient in AG5. And rating scale, in this case, I would say it's an achieved failed one, because when you participate in today's training, you will be your AG5 expert internally, at least for the basic features. Skill, it's just a skill. Validity period, in this case, of course, for an AG5 expert, I doubt that you're gonna forget items, but let's say we have a validity period of 5 years, and you have a warning period maybe for a retraining of 5 months. So I can click on save, and this means now that I created a skill that's valid for 5 years, and once those 5 years are running out 5 months in advance, you will get a warning that says, hey, please get a retraining. And then here at the bottom, of course, we can see it's pretty empty. No employee has anything in here yet. There's no requirement for, but this we will create in the next step. But before we go to the next step, are there any questions about how to create a skill? Don't see anything coming in the chat, which is fine. Then we jump to the next part, because now we created employees, so we had to look at the employees, we had to look at the skills, but now we also want to understand what are skill libraries and what is the organizational structure. So for this, we click here on organization, and the first thing we want to look at are the skill libraries. What is a skill library? You can compare it a little bit to the folders you can see on your desktop computer, for example, because what the library does is simply making files for you easily, or skills easily available, and they sort your skills for you. It's just there to make your life a little bit easier to find the skills that you need. And on top of this, and this is important, your matrix is always using for one axis the library, and for the other axis information from your organizational structure. So this is an important feature to understand. But let's have a look at the skill library. And here I can already see different categories. I can see your certificates. And if you remember back to our skill overview that we saw here, this is the flat list of skills with the categories we saw here. So those are actually the categories that are coming from our skill library category here. And if I want to create a new category, I can simply drag and drop, and you can see how the back changes to a little bit of a different gray shade. I can drag and drop it in here. Let's say I just want to create one here in the skill library, new category, and let's call it AG5. Knowledge And all of a sudden, I create a new category in my library where I can sort my different skills. And if I want to add a skill, I can click here on Add a Skill. Now I can have my AG5 export, and I can drag and drop it into my category. And now I can see here AG5. And if I update now, AG5 expert, no category. If I update this one now, I can see category AG5 knowledge came up. So this also means if you create a skill from scratch and you want to see it in any of your matrices, you always have to put them into a library. This goes hand in hand. So if you create a new skill, always understand that's a two-step. First the skill, then sort it to the library. Otherwise, you would not be able to see it in a matrix. If you want to change things around, it's a simple drag and drop system. You can move the skills around. You can also move the categories around. You can also say at some point, hey, I want to create a new library from scratch. That's also fine. Whatever works for you. There's no limitation for you for how many libraries you can have. A skill can also be in multiple libraries for whatever reason. This is something that can be discussed during your onboarding, of course, what would make most sense. The next part we want to have a look at is the organizational structure. This is really, really important to understand because the org structure is where we can create the positions that we saw in the employee. And this is also how we can create requirements for somebody, right? And you can see here already a really nice examples for what could be an org structure that is useful, maybe for the location. If I want to add a location in here, let's say new grouping. As I mentioned earlier, I'm currently sitting in the Netherlands. So let's say we have a creation location for the Netherlands. And then we have here Netherlands as the location. And then you can see here other actions you can do besides creating a new grouping. You can add a position and you can add a skill requirement. And the add a position means now I want to add this position to an employee, for example. So if I drag and drop Ryan into the Netherlands, that means now that Ryan, if I have a look at his portfolio page now, he all of a sudden also has the position tag of the Netherlands in here. And the next step, of course, that I would want to do, I want to add a skill requirement. Of course, now Dutch as a language would be nice for the Netherlands, but I don't think we have this in here as a skill yet. Let's just drag and drop my AG5 expert in here, because I would say everybody who is working in the Netherlands needs to be an AG5 expert. And that's pretty much the whole magic what I did now. I explained the system that I want to have a requirement put into place that everybody who is working in the Netherlands and has this tag needs to be trained as an AG5 expert. And if I go back now to Ryan's overview, now we have here 10 skills. And if I update now, all of a sudden we have 11 skills. If I open this one up, what's happening? I can see one skill is coming in from him being part of the Netherlands. If we go back to the org structure and have another look at a different one, organization employees, for example, and this now is a little bit more like an organigram, like you were asking a little bit earlier, Lisa. So, right, so we can see, the organization, we have the different departments, we have the different teams in here, and we have the different people in that team. And here we can be really creative, right? We can say whatever makes sense, whatever is needed for your company to use AG5, and where do you want to define requirements for? Do you want to have requirements because of team members? Do you want to have a requirement because of a specific job role? Do you want to create requirements because of different location? So those are things you can keep in mind and you can play around with. In this case, now Ryan and all the other colleagues here are part of the logistics teams 1. I can see here already we have 13 people in that team, and I have 4 requirements solely based on the logistics team 1. If I scroll down, I can see those are the requirements that I have. In this case, this is the achieved failed one. I can also tell the system I only need 1 employee or all employees. But for example, if you have a first aid responder, you don't need to be everybody proficient in being a first aid responder, but you want to make sure that at least maybe 1 or 2 people per team or per shift or per department are trained in something specific. So in this case, I say the ICC know how we only need 1 employee. Same goes for the L2 training. And then we have here 2 more trainings. And this you can see they have multi-level. So I can also say, I want everybody in the team to be trained up to level 1, up to level 2, or up to level 3. So this is something that also is adjustable in the requirement settings. And here it summarizes it really nice. It says all positions with the text logistics team 1 require the skill submarine 101 with the score beginner. If I make it to advanced, this changes to advanced because we have now a level 2. And this affects everybody here in that specific team. If Ryan at some point, or let's say if Caitlin wants to move from team 1 to team 3 or team 2, I can also, again, it's a simply drag and drop. And then all of a sudden, Caitlin is not part of the overall team 1, but she's part now of team number 3. And this also means that she might have all of a sudden a different set of requirements. But again, if she was already proficiently trained in those skills, she will keep those skills on her portfolio page. Then it's simply shown as valid, but not required anymore, like this one, right? So here the skill is still valid, but it's currently not required anymore. Yes, so are there any questions about the organizational structure? You can see we have different ideas how we could combine it. We have roles and requirements, workstations, organization employees. So sometimes it makes sense to say, okay, we have a location and department, or maybe we have a department and job roles because we want to have an operator attached to a specific department. Right. So those are things that you can talk in your onboarding to make sure that this is mirroring what you have and what you're working with at your company, and that's the most useful for you. Are there any questions about the organizational structure? Because libraries and org structure, that's a really important part to understand how it works in AG5. Then let's jump to the first part again, to the matrices for our dashboard, because we want to create a matrix from scratch, right? First, let's have a quick look here at the back workstation skill library. If I look at it, I can see all kinds of information. Those is all about to run out for that specific training. Here, I can also see how many people are required to be trained and how many are achieved. I can see that 5 people of those that are about to run out are actually not trained. That's maybe not the best example. This one is a little bit nicer already. So I can see here, for example, Rachel, there's a skill gap. She needs to be trained in something. If I click on it, I can see it's required of her because of her job role. I can see Rachel was trained in that specific skill, but it's not required, but it's a better training that she still has, right? So this is a nice overview of our matrix, for example. But most importantly, we want to create a matrix from scratch. And for this, we click here on the right corner, new matrix, and then the system takes us a little bit by the hand. First, we have to choose the employees we want to see in the system. And again, flat list, tree list, the system and the concept is the same. In this case, we want to go through the tree list because I'm looking for something specific. Because we added Ryan to the logistics team 1 and I think also myself. So I want to see how the logistics team 1 is actually doing. Here, if I want, I can say I want it to be grouped by anything specific that is set in the system. If we have different org structures where we can pull data from, maybe for the job role, for the departments. But in this case, it's just one logistics team. So we just leave it empty. We click on next, and then it says select the skills. I open this one up again, flat list, tree list. I have here my libraries. If I go on the tree list, you have to be aware it's changing. Then we can see the org structure and the libraries at the bottom. Typically, you want to use the skills from your skill library. In this case, I'm not so sure what are actually affecting us in that specific matrix, but we can filter this one out, and I'm going to show you in a second how this works. But in this case, I'm not so sure which skills are relevant or set as required, so I just use all the skills. I click on next, and then the system suggests a name, right? So I can choose the name if I would want to. I can adjust it. In this case, it makes sense. It's also just for us to try out. And then I can see if the employees, 12 employees, are part of my matrix. Theoretically, 40 skills would be part of my library. I can also change and invert the columns. But here, show only if, and this is now where it's interesting. because I'm going to show you in a second how to make it a little bit more relevant for that specific team. So now I click on save. And we have 11 employees with 40 skills in here. We can see all kinds of skills that are actually not relevant. There's no requirements set into place. There's also not a result for any of those employees. So let's say we want to slim it down a little bit. So in this case, when we create the matrix, and this is the same view again, and the last part for the skills, you can say, show me only the skills that are required, which means there's in my org structure for my team, there's an active requirement for me, or maybe show me a requirement or a previous result. In this case, let's say we only want to see those skills that are required of those people to be trained in. And then I can click on save. And then all of a sudden you see, hey, instead of 40 skills, it's already limited to 20 skills. Would be probably even less if Ryan would not be part of that team, because he has a lot of requirements for only one set of skills, where other people don't have it. But yeah, so this is the overview for my matrix. If I click here in the right corner on the display settings, I can invert the columns. Now I have the skills on top and I have the employees on the left side. I can play around with the size of the column and row headers to make it bigger or smaller. I can also see here a legend of the different icons that I can see in my matrix. So it's a nice explanation. What does an icon even mean in here? So this is the baseline for our matrix. Now let's say Olivia, she needs to be trained in teamwork. So I can click on that specific icon and I can see, okay, Olivia, it's required of her, skill is teamwork. And why is it required? Because working on that specific machine. Now I can click on add result. I can say it's achieved. Expiration date is something I can put in if I want to overwrite an existing expiration date. But if a skill automatically has one because of the validity period, then you don't need to worry about this one, because then it will be automatically filled out. I can add a remark if I want to. I can upload a certificate, and then I can click on save. And then you can see that all of a sudden Olivia's skill gap, the red icon for the skill gap, is gone because she's trained in it. If I would want to, let's say, have a classroom event and have multiple people that are coming to join a specific training. Let's say here I see all of the people need to be trained in the communication one. Let's have a classroom event where all of my team is going to participate. Then instead of clicking on the icon for that specific employee, I can click on that skill itself in that matrix, and I can add multiple results. And now what it does, it says, hey, I can create multiple results for all of the people if you would want to. You don't have to click a bazillion times on every employee. I can say it's achieved. I can even say I want to upload a specific certificate already, and then I can click on next. And then you can see now all of my employees are here in the list. It's pre-filled out with achieved. If I open it one up, I can also see that there's one file automatically be uploaded. So this makes my life easier. And if everybody attended and passed, that's even better. Otherwise, I could also say, hey, Ryan, maybe let's say Brit, for example, she wasn't even there, so nothing was created. She was maybe sick, and Wout, he failed because he did a bad job. Then I can click on save 10 skills, and then all of a sudden you can see my whole row is about to change. And if I would now go back to have a look, let's click here on Ryan real quick again. If you click now on Ryan's overview list from the employee page that we saw a little bit earlier, you can all of a sudden see there are two attachments, right? So his first attachment was a certificate here, and this is the certificate for the other skill that was attached here. Yeah, if at some point maybe you have a quarterly or yearly discussion with your employees and you say, hey, I want to go with you through different skills, then you can also add multiple results, not only from the skills point of view, but from the employee point of view. For this case, you simply click on the name, add multiple results. And then in this case, of course, because we have multiple rating scales in that thing, we cannot choose something in the beginning, but we could upload a certificate for it or a signature that we said, okay, we had the talk, and I can click on next, and then it opens up all the different skills that are relevant for that employee to make it easier in a yearly. yeah, this is how you can manage your workforce within the matrix. You can also click here on View and Insights, which means now it takes a moment. This will load the content of your matrix into a nice overview where you can see the compliance, how did it change, how many problems do we have, what is the period I want to look at, right? So this gives you a nice overview, a visual overview of your workforce. I can see now here is my logistics CMON skills library, the matrix we just created. If I would want to share this matrix with somebody, I can add a user in here. Let's say where's Ryan? Ryan. Okay, Ryan doesn't have an account, I guess, a login account. Let's say I want to share with yours. I can say, can he view the data, or can he only also edit the data? If I say edit, that means he can also add results in the system. Viewing means he can only look at the results. Okay, there's a question in the system. How do you see it? What initial steps are necessary to successfully implement the foundations of the system? I'm thinking, for example, of a list of skills. So yeah, that's something. So if I understand correctly, Angela, you want to know what would be the steps to take for successful onboarding, right? So the data that we need for the system, of course, to be running, and that would go back to the key concepts. We will need to have a flat list, for example, or a list of the skills. We need a list of the employees, and then ideally a list for the requirements. And typically during our onboarding, we recommend to just send the data over that you have. You can share your Excel file as it is with us, and then we have a look at it together and see, hey, do I understand the file? Can I work that file in a way for me to import the data in the system? So before you really take action and you maybe rework your data, just send the data during your onboarding to your onboarding specialist, and then they can have a look at it. So maybe we can already work with it. What should we pay particular attention to? Yeah, so really, really important to get the most out of AG5, of course, is you need the skill list, you need the employees, you need the requirements, why somebody need to be trained on, and what level is expected of them. So those are the most important parts that we need in the system to get starting with it. And then, of course, if you say we have already existing skill results, what do we need? Do we have records of the existing skill results? Should we put them into the system? No, so this is something that would work. But if you are in your onboarding, you can just send over the data that you have, and then we can take it from there. Okay, I think we actually talked, or sorry, I actually talked a little bit longer than expected because we're almost at the end of our webinar. If are there any other questions, please put it into the chat. Because if we open this one up again, this is part, of course, in your slides. It's just for you as information how you can get to the help section and the email for the support. And now would be the official Q&A part. Okay, nice. So first people are just thanking you. And yeah, if you would want to book a session with us for a personalized demo, that would be great, of course. And you will get a little survey now that you can fill out. How did you like that webinar? Was it useful for you? Did you get any information? That would be really great to give us some information, because of course we want to make those webinars for you, and we want to improve where we can to make sure that it's the most super interesting for everybody and you get the most value out of it. Yeah, with this being said, please fill out the survey if you can. I'm looking forward to see some of you in one of our onboardings if you liked what you saw. If you have more questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Book a demo session. We can also accommodate and maybe upload already some custom data from you into a demo environment to see how that works and how that looks. Yeah, thanks everybody for your attention. Thank you for the questions that were coming in. I hope you have a really, really nice, at least here, lunchtime for us now, right? Otherwise, have a really, really nice day and a nice weekend. I hope everybody can enjoy some spring sun that is coming. And yeah, see you next time.